The engagement party was in full swing. Crystal glasses clinking, laughter bubbling over the sound of a string quartet, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and roasted lamb. Elena Carter stood at the edge of the room, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass. She had spent an hour picking out the emerald green dress that hugged her curves just right, the one her mother had once said made her look too provocative. But tonight she wanted to feel beautiful, wanted for once to be seen. She spotted her parents near the center of the room, her father's arms slung proudly around Daniel's shoulders. Her brother, golden, perfect Daniel, grinned as their relatives showered him with praise. "Such a successful young man! Your fiancé is so lucky." Elena took a slow sip of wine, the bitterness lingering on her tongue. Then her mother noticed her. For a second, Elena thought maybe she'd smile, wave her over. But instead, her mother's eyes flickered with something like irritation before she turned back to the conversation. Elena exhaled, her chest tightening. A hand touched her elbow. "Elena, you made it." Daniel beamed at her, his cheeks flushed with champagne. He pulled her into a quick, careless hug. "Glad you're here," she forced a smile. "Wouldn't miss it." He was already looking past her, scanning the crowd. "Hey, do you know where the extra gift bags are? Mia's cousins just showed up and—" "Mom's freaking out about Daniel." Their father's voice cut through the noise. "Come here, son. The Harpers want to toast you." Daniel squeezed her arm absently. "We'll catch up later, yeah?" And just like that, he was gone. Elena stood there, her fingers curling into her palm. Later. That word had haunted her childhood. "We'll play later, Elena. We'll talk later." Later, later, later. A server passed by with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. She reached for one, but her mother appeared like a shadow, intercepting her. "You're blocking the waitstaff," her mother murmured, not looking at her. Then, as an afterthought, "Here." She thrust something into Elena's hands, a folding chair, the cheap metal kind, the kind you'd use for a backyard barbecue, not a five-star venue. Elena stared at it, her throat closing. "Mom?" "The table's full," her mother said briskly. "You don't mind, do you?" Elena's nails dug into the cold metal. Around her, the party continued, no one noticing, no one caring. She swallowed hard. "No, I don't mind." Her mother nodded, already turning away. "Good. And don't slouch. People are watching." Elena carried the chair to the far corner of the room, her face burning. She unfolded it with a sharp click, the sound swallowed by the music. As she sat, her knees pressed against the edge of a stranger's chair. No one spoke to her. She pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages, just to have something to do with her hands. A notification flashed, a reminder for her condo's maintenance fee. The condo she'd bought herself after years of saving, the one her parents had never stepped foot in. A bitter laugh rose in her chest. Then her father was standing over her, Elena. His voice was low, tense. "We need to talk." She looked up. His face was unreadable. "About what?" "Not here." He jerked his head toward the empty hallway. Her stomach twisted, but she stood, following him past the noise of the party into the dimly lit corridor. The music faded, replaced by the muffled echo of their footsteps. Her father turned abruptly. "We've been discussing your condo." Elena blinked. "What about it?" "It's time to transfer the title to Daniel." The words hit like a slap. She actually took a step back. "What?" Her father's jaw tightened. "He's getting married. He needs stability. That property is perfect for him." Elena's pulse roared in her ears. "That's my home. I paid for it." Her mother appeared then, materializing from the shadows. "Don't be selfish, Elena. Your brother needs it more." "Selfish?" Elena's voice cracked. "I've spent my entire life watching you give him everything. And now you want my condo too?" Her father's face darkened. "After all we've done for you." "What have you done for me?" The words tore out of her, raw and shaking. You gave me a folding chair at my own brother's party. You've erased me from family photos. You've never once— Her mother's hand lashed out, gripping her wrist. Keep your voice down. Elena yanked free. No. Her father moved so fast she didn't see it coming, one hand snatching a champagne bottle from a nearby tray, the other shoving her against the wall. The glass smashed against the table beside her, shards exploding like glitter. Then pain, white-hot and searing, as the jagged edge raked across her shoulder. She gasped, her knees buckling. Blood bloomed across the emerald fabric, dark and wet. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then her father dropped the bottle. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Look what you made him do. Elena's vision blurred. The hallway spun. Somewhere, distant laughter floated from the party. She stumbled forward, past them, past the stares of a horrified server, out into the cool night air. Her hands shook as she fumbled for her keys. Inside her car, she finally let the tears come, and then, through the haze of pain and rage, she remembered. The file. The one her grandfather had given her years ago, the one she'd shoved into the back of her safe and tried to forget. With trembling fingers, she pulled up the scanned copy on her phone. The deed to her parents' house, and the name on it, clear as day, was hers. The pain in Elena's shoulder throbbed in time with her heartbeat as she drove through the empty streets, the city lights blurring through her unshed tears. She couldn't go back to her condo, not yet. The thought of those pristine white walls, the silence, the emptiness, made her chest tighten. Instead, she found herself pulling into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner she used to frequent during her college days, a place with sticky vinyl booths and coffee strong enough to erase memories. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped inside. The diner was nearly empty at this hour, just a couple of exhausted-looking nurses at the counter and an old man in the corner nursing a cup of something that smelled like whiskey more than coffee. Elena slid into a booth by the window, her dress sticking to the blood drying on her skin. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag that read Dolores approached, her expression shifting from polite indifference to genuine concern when she got a closer look at Elena. Honey, you okay? Elena forced a smile. Just a long night. Dolores didn't push. Coffee? Please. And Elena hesitated. Do you have any first aid stuff? I had a little accident. The woman's gaze flicked to Elena's shoulder, then back to her face. There was a knowing look there, but she just nodded. Be right back. Elena pulled out her phone while she waited, her fingers hovering over the screen. Part of her wanted to call someone, a friend, a coworker, anyone, but who would she even tell? The few friends she had were more like acquaintances, people she exchanged pleasantries with at work functions, but never let close enough to see the cracks in her life. And the one person who might have understood, her grandfather, had been gone, for 3 years now. Dolores returned with a steaming mug of coffee and a small first aid kit. Bathroom's down the hall if you want to clean up. Elena took the kit with a murmured thanks and made her way to the cramped restroom. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead as she locked the door and finally let herself look at the damage in the mirror. The cut wasn't as deep as she'd feared, but it was ugly. A jagged line of torn skin just above her collarbone, the edges crusted with dried blood. Her dress was ruined, the emerald fabric stained a muddy brown where the blood had soaked in. She wet a paper towel and dabbed at the wound, her breath hissing through her teeth at the sting. As she worked, her mind kept circling back to the deed on her phone. Her grandfather's words echoed in her memory, the day he'd handed her the file. This is yours, Elena. No matter what happens, remember that. She'd been too young to understand then, too caught up in the hope that maybe, her parents would love her if she just tried hard enough. She finished bandaging the eye, cut as best she could, and splashed cold water on her face. The woman staring back at her in the mirror looked hollow, dark circles under her eyes, her lipstick smudged from where she'd bitten it raw. When she returned to the booth, Dolores had left a slice of pie beside her coffee. On the house, the waitress said when Elena looked up in surprise. Elena picked up the fork, then set it down again, her appetite gone. Instead, she pulled up the deed on her phone again, zooming in on the details she'd been too shaken to process earlier. The house, the one her parents had lived in for 20 years, the one they'd hosted every holiday in, the one they'd proudly told guests was theirs, wasn't theirs at all. Her grandfather had transferred the title to her when she turned 18, a fact her parents had clearly kept from her. All this time, they'd been living in her house, acting like they owned it, while treating her like an afterthought. Her fingers tightened around the phone. A notification popped up, a text from Daniel. "Where'd you go? Mom and Dad are pissed." Elena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. She could picture him standing there at the party, oblivious as always, more concerned about their parents' mood than the fact that his sister had just been hit with a fucking champagne bottle. She didn't reply. Instead, she opened her contacts and scrolled until she found the name she was looking for. Martin Reeves, attorney at law. Her grandfather's lawyer. The call connected on the second ring. "Elena?" Martin's voice was rough with sleep. "It's 2 a.m, what's wrong?" She took a shaky breath. "I need your help." The sun was rising by the time Elena pulled into the parking lot of Martin's office. He was waiting for her inside, his suit rumpled, but his expression sharp. "Let me see," he said the moment she walked in, his eyes zeroing in on the bandage peeking out from her collar. Elena didn't protest as he gently peeled back the gauze, his mouth tightening. At the sight of the cut. "Who did this?" She told him everything. The party, the folding chair, the demand for her condo, the way her father had swung that bottle without hesitation. Martin listened in silence, his face growing darker with every word. When she finished, he leaned back, in his chair, steepling his fingers. "First things first, we're filing a police report." Elena shook her head. "No, I don't want... This isn't negotiable." Martin's voice was firm. "That cut could have been a lot worse. Next time it might be." Next time. The word sent a chill down her spine. Martin sighed, rubbing his temples. As for the house, he pulled up the deed on his computer, confirming what she already knew. "Your grandfather left it to you free and clear. Your parents have been living there as tenants, unpaying ones, at that." Elena swallowed. "What can I do?" A slow, grim smile spread across Martin's face. "Whatever you want." She didn't go home that day. Instead, she checked into a hotel under a fake name, the kind of place with thick curtains and a minibar she drained within an hour. Her phone buzzed incessantly, calls from her parents, texts from Daniel, voicemails from relatives asking why. She'd caused a scene. She silenced it all. That night, she dreamed of her grandfather. He was standing in the backyard of the house, the one with the big oak tree she used to climb as a kid. "It's yours," he said, handing her a key. "Take it." She woke with a start, her heart pounding. The first thing she did was call Martin. "I want them out." His voice was calm. "How fast?" "Yesterday." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "I'll drop the paperwork." The eviction notice arrived at her parents' house 3 days later. Elena wasn't there to see it, but Martin described the scene in vivid detail when he called her afterward. Her father had apparently called him, screaming about fraud, about family betrayal, about how Elena would regret this. Her mother's reaction, though, was what stuck with her. She just kept saying one thing, Martin said quietly. She was never supposed to find out. Elena hung up the phone, her hands steady for the first time in weeks. The game had just begun. The morning after the eviction notice was served, Elena woke to the sound of her phone vibrating against the hotel nightstand. She didn't need to look to know who it was. The calls had started at dawn. First her father, then her mother, then Daniel, then aunts and uncles whose numbers she hadn't saved. She silenced the phone and rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. The bandage on her shoulder pulled tight with the movement, a dull ache pulsing beneath it. She ordered room service, coffee, toast, eggs she didn't touch, and spread. The legal documents Martin had sent over across the bed. The eviction notice was straightforward. 30 days to vacate. no negotiations, no extensions. She traced her finger over the official letterhead, the weight of what she was doing settling. In her chest, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Daniel. "What the hell is this eviction shit? Call me." Elena set the phone face down. She wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Instead, she pulled up the security app for her condo. The cameras showed nothing. Unusual, just the empty living room, the quiet hallway. But then she switched to the feed for the front door. Someone had been there. A gift basket sat on the welcome mat, wrapped in cellophane and tied with a ribbon. She zoomed in. A card was tucked into the ribbon. "To our dearest Elena." Her stomach turned. She called the building's front desk. "Was anyone by my unit this morning?" The concierge hesitated. "Your mother stopped by, Ms. Carter. She left something for you." "Did she try to get in?" Another pause. "She asked for a key. We told her no, of course." Elena exhaled. "If she comes back, don't let her up. No matter what she says." She considered ignoring the basket entirely, but curiosity gnawed at her. After an hour, she finally gave in and called a courier to bring it to the hotel. When it arrived, she made the delivery guy wait outside the door as she opened it, half expecting something dramatic, a dead rat, a pile of ashes, some twisted metaphor for what they thought of her. But it was just a basket. Overpriced chocolates, a bottle of wine, a plush blanket. The kind of generic gift you'd give a coworker you barely knew. The card was worse. "We're so sorry about what happened at the party. Let's talk. Family is everything. Love, Mom and Dad." Elena laughed, sharp and humorless. Family is everything. The same words her mother had used when she'd caught Elena crying in her room at 16 after Daniel had gotten a car for his birthday, and she'd gotten a used calculator. "Family is everything, Elena. Stop being so selfish." She threw the card in the trash. The rest of the basket followed. Martin called in the afternoon. "Your father's lawyer reached out." Elena paced the length of the hotel room. "And?" "He's claiming the house transfer was a mistake. Says your grandfather was confused when he signed the deed over to you." She stopped walking. "He was perfectly lucid." "I know. But they're going to fight this. Let them." Martin sighed. "Elena, it's not just about the house anymore. They're telling people you're unstable. That you're lashing out because of some..." He hesitated. "Some mental breakdown." She closed her eyes. "Of course they were." "Your brother's fiancé posted something online," Martin continued gently. "A photo of you at the party with a caption about toxic family members. It's getting traction." Elena's hands shook. "Send me the link." The post was worse than she'd imagined. There she was, caught mid-expression at the party, eyes too wide, mouth tense. The caption read, "When you have to deal with a jealous sibling trying to ruin your big day. Family drama, by Felicia." The comments were a graveyard of heart emojis and, "OMG, I can't believe her." And "You're better off without that energy, babe." Elena clicked on Mia's profile. The most recent post was a selfie with Daniel, his arm around her, both of them grinning. "Nothing can break us. Stronger than hate." She threw her phone onto the bed. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings and silent hotel rooms. Elena's parents had gone nuclear, calling relatives, posting vague but damning things about her online, even showing up at her office, only to be turned away by security. The story they'd spun was airtight. Elena was the ungrateful daughter, lashing out for attention, trying to steal what wasn't hers. And Daniel, he'd chosen his side. His texts grew increasingly aggressive. "You're embarrassing the family. Mom's crying every night because of you. Just give them the damn house, Elena." She stopped responding, but the worst came on the fourth day. An email from her father's lawyer, CC'd to her entire extended family. "Given Ms. Carter's recent erratic behavior and false claims against her parents, we've been advised to petition for a psychological evaluation to determine her fitness to manage her own affairs, including the disputed property. Elena read it 3 times before it sank in. They were trying to have her declared incompetent. She called Martin, her voice barely above a whisper. Can they do this? His silence was answer enough. They'll need a court order. He finally said. But yes, if they convince a judge you're unstable, they can force an evaluation. And if the evaluator sides with them, she finished the thought for him. They could take everything, including the condo, including the house, including her freedom. That night, Elena did something she hadn't done in years. She drove to her parents' house, not to go inside. She'd never step foot in that place again, but to sit outside, in her car, watching the warm glow of the windows, the shadow of her father moving behind the curtains. This was the house she'd grown up in. The house where she'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where she'd hidden in the closet during thunderstorms, where she'd sat at the kitchen table for hours, waiting for someone to notice she hadn't eaten dinner. And now they were trying to take it from her, not just the house, her life. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. Last chance, Elena. Drop this or I swear to God I'll... She didn't read the rest. Instead, she started the car and drove straight to Martin's office. He was still there, despite the late hour, his desk covered in paperwork. He looked up when she walked in, his expression grim. I was just about to call you. Elena sat across from him. I want to countersue. Martin leaned back in his chair. For? Defamation, emotional distress, that bullshit competency petition. She took a deep breath. And assault. His eyebrows rose. You want to press charges? For the party? She nodded. Martin studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his desk and pulled out a folder. I was hoping you'd say that. Inside was a copy of the venue's security footage. Elena's breath caught. You can see everything, Martin said quietly. The folding chair. The argument. In the hall. The moment your father hit you. She stared at the still image, her father's face twisted in rage, the bottle raised. It's enough for criminal charges, Martin said, if you want to go that far. Elena closed the folder. I do. The courthouse steps were slick with rain as Elena climbed them, Martin at her side. Reporters had already gathered. Someone had tipped them off, probably her father's lawyer, and camera flashes exploded in her face the moment she appeared. Elena. Over here. Is it true you're having your parents arrested? What do you say to claims you're just after their money? She kept her head down, gripping Martin's arm as they pushed through the crowd. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and industrial cleaner. Her parents were already seated at the defendant's table, her father's face purple with rage, her mother's eerily calm. Daniel sat behind them, his jaw clenched. When he saw her, his eyes burned with betrayal. The bailiff called the court to order. Elena's knees trembled as she took the stand. The video played on a screen for the entire room to see. Her father's snarl, the bottle shattering, her stumbling back with blood on her dress. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Her mother didn't flinch. Ms. Carter, the prosecutor asked gently, why didn't you report this assault immediately? Elena looked directly at her parents. Because I thought, for once, they might be sorry. Her father slammed his fist on the table. This is bullshit! The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Afterward, the hallway was chaos. Reporters shouting, lawyers huddling, her uncle sobbing into his hands. Elena slipped into a side stairwell, pressing her forehead against the cool concrete wall. A door creaked open behind her. You happy now? Daniel's voice was raw. She turned to face him. He looked older somehow, shadows under his eyes she'd never noticed before. They hit me, Daniel. He shook his head. They made a mistake. People lose their tempers. But this? He gestured wildly toward the courtroom. You're destroying our family over one fucking moment? Elena laughed bitterly. One moment? Try 30 years. Something in her tone made him pause. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Did you even know the house was mine? She asked quietly. Daniel blinked. What? Grandpa left it to me. They've been lying to both of us our whole lives. His mouth opened, then closed. She watched the realization hit him, the way his eyes darted as if mentally rewinding every conversation, every boast their parents had made about their property, their investment. That's not... He trailed off. Elena pulled the deed copy from her bag and handed it to him. His hands shook as he read it. They were going to let you marry Mia thinking you'd inherit that house, she said. What happens when you find out it's mine? When you can't give her the life they promised? Daniel's face crumpled. For a second she thought he might cry. Then his expression hardened. You're lying. You've always been jealous of me. He threw the paper at her feet. Enjoy your revenge, Elena. Hope it was worth it. He stormed out, leaving the door swinging behind him. The restraining order was granted that afternoon. Her parents were ordered to stay 500 feet from her condo, and their house, which the judge explicitly confirmed was hers. Reporters. Martin drove her to the house, her house, after the hearing. The lawn was overgrown, the curtains drawn like closed eyes. She hadn't been inside since Grandpa's funeral. The key still fit. The smell hit her first, lemon polish and her mother's perfume, so familiar it made her nauseous. Nothing had changed. Same ugly floral couch, same dusty china cabinet, same family photos on the walls, except now she noticed the gaps, the spaces where she should have been. School pictures, vacations, graduations, all carefully edited to remove her. A whole life erased. She climbed the stairs to her old bedroom. The door was ajar. It wasn't a bedroom anymore. A treadmill faced the window where her bed used to be. Her posters had been painted over. The closet held storage bins, not clothes. They'd turned her room into a gym before the paint on Grandpa's grave was dry. Elena sank to the floor, her breath coming in short gasps. All those years of begging for scraps of their love, and they couldn't even wait a month to wipe her out of the house. Martin found her there minutes later. He didn't speak, just sat beside her in the silence. Finally, she looked up. I want to sell it. Elena. Every brick in this place is poisoned. She stood, wiping her face. But first, I want them to watch me burn it down. The auction notice ran in the paper the next Sunday. Estate sale. All contents must go. She hired movers to empty the house, selling everything from her mother's prized china to her father's golf clubs. Let them explain to their friends why their belongings were being hawked to strangers. During the sale, Elena sat across the street in a parked car, watching as bargain hunters picked through her childhood. A woman carried out the rocking. Chair Grandpa used to read to her in. A teenager tested her father's putter on the lawn. Then she saw them. Her parents lurking at the edge of the crowd, their faces twisted in fury. The restraining order kept them from approaching, but they'd come anyway, to watch, to bear witness. Her mother met Elena's eyes through the windshield. For the first time in her life, Elena saw fear in them. She started the engine and drove away without looking back. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Elena knew the time because she'd been staring at the hotel alarm clock for hours, watching the red numbers flicker as rain lashed the windows. She let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Daniel. Her voice sounded hollow in the dark. Silence. Then a wet, ragged breath. They lied to me too. She sat up slowly, the sheets pulling around her waist. The bandage on her shoulder itched. What are you talking about? I found Mom's journals. His words tumbled out in a rush. They're not. Elena, Grandpa didn't just give you the house. They stole from you. For years. A car alarm went off somewhere in the distance. Elena's fingers turned numb around the phone. Explain. When you got that scholarship to Stanford, they took the tuition money Grandpa left you. Used it to pay off their debts. Daniel's voice cracked. And your trust fund, the one from when you were born, it's gone. They've been draining it since you were 12. The room tilted. Elena remembered standing in this very hotel bathroom 2 weeks ago, staring at the bloody dress she'd worn to Daniel's party. That same dizzy sensation washed over her now. Why are you telling me this? Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Because I found something else about the condo. Elena's breath caught. The condo she'd scraped and saved for, working 80-hour weeks while her parents called her selfish for not visiting. More. The one they demanded she hand over like it was nothing. Dad had a key made last year, Daniel whispered. He's been going through your things when you're at work. Ice flooded her veins. All those times she'd come home to misplaced items. Perfume bottles slightly off-center, underwear drawers not quite closed. She'd chalked it up to stress. They were looking for the house deed, Daniel continued. But when they couldn't find it, they started planning other ways to get control of your assets. A shaky inhale. The competency petition wasn't their idea, Elena. They hired someone to suggest it. The rain outside turned torrential, hammering against the glass. Elena realized she was shaking. Why now? She asked. After everything? A muffled sound, maybe Daniel wiping his face. Mom wrote that I was always the investment. You were just overhead. The word hung between them, ugly and final. For the first time, Elena heard real pain in her brother's voice. Not anger, not entitlement, but the shattered disillusionment of a golden child realizing he'd been a tool all along. She should have felt vindicated. Instead, she just felt sick. What do you want me to do with this? She asked quietly. Daniel exhaled. I don't know, but I thought you should know. The journals are in Grandpa's old safe, the one behind the water heater. Elena closed her eyes. She'd forgotten about that safe. Grandpa had shown it to her when she was 10, whispering the combination, her birthday, like it was their secret. I'll be there in an hour, she said, and hung up. The house looked different in the pre-dawn gloom, shadows stretching long across the empty rooms where strangers had carted away her family's life. Elena parked around back, using the spare key she'd kept on her keychain since high school. The basement smelled of mildew and old laundry. She moved silently past the ping-pong table where Daniel had once laughed with their father, past the wine, rack their mother had proudly stocked with bottles she never let anyone drink. The water heater hummed in the far corner. The safe was exactly where she remembered. Her fingers trembled as she spun the dial. 0927. The door swung open with a soft click. Inside were 3 leather-bound journals and a yellowed envelope with her name in Grandpa's handwriting. She tore it open first. A check fell out, dated the month before he died, made out to her for $187,000, the exact amount of her stolen Stanford tuition plus interest. Attached was a note. For when you find out, always know, you were my favorite. Something hot and sharp rose in Elena's throat. She stuffed the check in her pocket and grabbed the journals. The first entry stopped her cold. Daniel's engagement party today. Told Elena she should give him her condo. When she refused, Robert hit her with a bottle. I watched from the hallway. Didn't stop him. God forgive me. Part of me was glad. Elena's vision blurred. She flipped to random pages. Took $5,000 from Elena's trust fund today. Robert says she'll never notice. Found Elena's diary under her mattress. The things she wrote about wanting to die. I should feel guilty, but all I can think is how much therapy will cost. Daniel asked why Elena doesn't visit anymore. Told him she's too busy with work. Better he thinks that than knows the truth. The last entry was dated 2 days ago. Robert met with Dr. Vickers today to discuss the competency petition. If we can get Elena declared unfit, we'll have access to all her accounts. Maybe then she'll learn respect. Elena's hands shook so badly, the pages rattled. She took photos of everything, methodically, like she was collecting evidence at a crime scene. Because that's what this was, a 20-year crime spree where she'd been the mark. She was halfway up the basement stairs when the kitchen light flicked on. Looking for something? Her mother stood at the top of the steps, silk robe perfectly tied, hair impeccably coiffed despite the hour. In one hand, she held a glass of wine. In the other, Elena's phone. "I always check the cameras when the alarm goes off," her mother said mildly. "Imagine my surprise seeing you here." Elena tightened her grip on the journals. "It's my house." Her mother took a slow sip of wine. "Not for long." She held up Elena's phone, displaying the screenshots of journal entries. "Defamation is a serious charge, darling, especially with fabricated evidence." Elena's blood ran cold. "You know it's real." "Do I?" Her mother's smile was poisonously sweet. A grieving daughter, recently traumatized, lashing out with wild accusations. She tipped. "The media will eat it up." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. This was why they planted the incompetency narrative, not just for the money, but to discredit anything she said against them. Elena forced herself to breathe. "What do you want?" Same as always. Her mother descended one step. "Drop the assault charges. Sign the house back to us." Another step. "And publicly apologize for your breakdown." They were close enough now that Elena could smell her mother's perfume, the same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn Elena's whole life. The scent of bedtime stories that never came, of hugs withheld, of a childhood measured in silences. Elena looked her mother dead in the eyes. No. For a fraction of a second, shock flickered across that perfectly composed face. Then her mother laughed, a light, tinkling sound that didn't match the venom in her eyes. "You always were stubborn." She took another sip of wine. Idiot. Never served you well. She turned to leave, then paused at the top of the stairs. "Oh, and Elena? That check from your grandfather? It bounced. The old man was senile long before he died." The kitchen door swung shut behind her. Elena waited until she heard the front door close before collapsing onto the steps. The journals dug into her ribs. Her phone was gone. The check in her pocket suddenly felt like ash. Then she noticed it, a tiny red light blinking on the water heater, the security camera her mother had mentioned, still recording. Elena stood slowly, a new realization dawning. Her mother had made one fatal mistake. She'd confessed on tape. The recording burned in Elena's pocket like a live coal as she sped through the empty streets. Dawn bled pink across the skyline, but her mind raced faster than the sunrise. She needed to get to Martin before her parents realized their mistake, before they could spin this, twist it, turn it against her like they always did. Her hands shook as she pulled into the parking garage beneath Martin's office building. The elevator ride up felt endless, her reflection in the mirrored walls a ghost of herself. Pale, hollow-eyed, lips pressed into a bloodless line. Martin was already at his desk, tie loose, coffee steaming beside a stack of files. He looked up as she burst in, his expression shifting from surprise to concern in an instant. "Elena? What's—" She slammed the journals onto his desk, then pulled the USB drive from her pocket, the one she'd ripped from the security system before leaving the house. "Play it." Martin didn't ask questions. He plugged the drive in, and within seconds, her mother's voice filled the room, cool, calculated, confessing to everything. "Robert met with Dr. Vickers today to discuss the competency petition. If we can get Elena declared unfit, we'll have access to all her accounts. Maybe then she'll learn respect." Martin's face darkened. He paused the recording. "Where did you get this?" "The house security system." She didn't realize it was still running. Elena's voice was steady now, the initial shock hardening into something sharper. "She took my phone. She threatened to call it fabricated evidence. But she didn't know about this." Then she stepped forward. Flashbulbs exploded. Voices rose in a cacophony of questions, but she didn't flinch. She took her place beside Martin, her hands resting lightly on the podium. "Thank you all for coming," Martin began. "My client, Elena Carter, has a statement to make regarding the ongoing legal proceedings against her parents, Robert and Margaret Carter." Elena unfolded the paper in front of her, though she didn't need to read it. She'd memorized every word. "For the past 28 years, she began, her voice clear and unwavering, "my parents have lied to me, stolen from me, and manipulated me into believing I was the problem. Yesterday, I discovered the full extent of their deceit." She paused, letting the room hang on her next words. "They stole my college tuition. They drained my trust fund. They falsified documents to make my grandfather appear incompetent in order to overturn his will. And when I refused to hand over my home, my father assaulted me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elena continued. "But this morning, my mother made one critical mistake." Martin cued the reporter. The mother's voice filled the room, crisp and damning. "Robert met with Dr. Vickers today to discuss the competency petition. If we can get Elena declared unfit, we'll have access to all her accounts. Maybe then she'll learn respect." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but Elena didn't move. She let the recording play to the end, her mother's breath, her casual cruelty, the way she'd admitted to everything without a shred of remorse. When it finished, silence was deafening. Elena looked directly into the nearest camera. "I will not be silenced anymore." The fallout was immediate. By the time Elena left the press conference, her phone was flooded with notifications. News outlets picking up the story, social media exploding with reactions, old friends reaching out with apologies she wasn't sure she wanted to hear, but one message stood out. "Daniel, I'm outside your hotel. We need to talk." She found him leaning against his car, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. His usual polished demeanor was gone. His hair was a mess, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red with pain. For the first time in years, he looked human. Elena crossed her arms. "What do you want?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I watched the press conference, and he looked down at his hands. I believe you. 3 words. That was all it took for the wall Elena had built around herself to fall. She exhaled sharply, her throat tight. Daniel continued, his voice rough. "I went back to the house after you left, confronted Mom and Dad. They didn't even deny it, Elena. They just..." He broke off, shaking his head. "They just laughed." Elena's nails dug into her palms. "Where are they now?" "Lawyering up, probably." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "But that's not why I'm here." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I found this in Dad's office safe. It's yours." Elena took it, her fingers brushing against his. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a notarized letter from her grandfather, dated just weeks before his death. "In the event of my passing, I appoint my granddaughter, Elena Carter, as sole executor of my estate. Any attempts by Robert or Margaret to contest this would be considered fraud." Elena's breath caught. This was the final piece, the legal proof that her parents had knowingly acted against her grandfather's wishes. She looked up at Daniel, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you giving this to me?" His jaw tightened. "Because I finally realized something." "What?" He met her eyes. "I was never the golden child, Elena. I was just the distraction." For the first time in their lives, Elena saw her brother clearly, not as the enemy, not as the favorite, but as another victim of their parents' manipulation. She didn't hug him. She didn't forgive him. But she nodded, just once, and for now, that was enough. That night, Elena sat on the floor of her hotel room, surrounded by documents, recordings, and the weight of everything she'd uncovered. The news played quietly in the background. Her parents' faces splashed across every channel, their decades of lies unraveling in real time. A knock at the door startled her. She peered through the peephole. A courier stood outside holding a small package. Elena opened the door just enough to take it. "Who's it from?" The courier shrugged. "Anonymous." She locked the door again before tearing open the package. Inside was a single key and a note. "For the locks you didn't know needed changing." Elena turned the key over in her palm. It was sleek, modern, nothing like the worn keys to her parents' house. Then it hit her. Her condo. Her parents had a key. She grabbed her phone and dialed the first locksmith she could find. The locksmith took less than 20 minutes to change every lock in Elena's condo. As he worked, she stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the early morning light spill across the hardwood floors. The place felt different now, tainted. How many times had her parents let themselves in while she was at work? Gone through her drawers, her files, her private things. The thought made her skin crawl. The locksmith handed her 3 shiny new keys. "All set. These are the only copies in existence." Elena tipped him generously and locked the door behind him. For a long moment, she just stood there, back pressed against the wood, breathing in the silence of her own space. Her safe space. Then, her phone buzzed, a text from Martin. "Turn on channel 7, now." She grabbed the remote. The screen flickered to life just in time to catch her mother's tear-streaked face filling the frame. Margaret Carter stood on the courthouse steps, surrounded by microphones, her usually immaculate makeup smudged beneath her eyes. Robert loomed behind her, jaw clenched, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. Completely fabricated. Her mother was saying, voice trembling with practiced distress. "That recording was edited. My daughter has been mentally unstable for years, and now she's lashing out in the most horrific." The camera suddenly swung left as shouts erupted. Daniel pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of cold fury. He grabbed a microphone and started recording. "That's enough." The crowd fell silent. Even Margaret looked stunned. Daniel turned to face the cameras directly. "My sister's telling the truth. Every word. And I have proof." He pulled a folded document from his jacket. The camera zoomed in, a bank statement showing multiple transfers, from Elena's trust fund into their father's private account. Robert lunged forward, but his lawyer held him back. The footage dissolved into chaos, shouting, cameras jostling, security guards rushing in. The news anchor's voiceover cut in. "Breaking news. Local businessman Robert Carter and his wife Margaret now face multiple felony charges after their son, Daniel Carter, publicly corroborated daughter Elena Carter's allegations of financial abuse and fraud." Elena muted the TV. Her hands were shaking a bit, but not from fear this time. From something dangerously close to it. Her doorbell rang. She peered through the peephole. Daniel stood there, his knuckles raw like he'd been in a fight. She unchained the lock. They stared at each other in the doorway. His left eye was starting to swell. "Dad punched me," he said hoarsely. Elena stepped aside to let him in. The coffee she made for Daniel sat untouched between them on the kitchen island. He kept flexing his right hand, the one with split knuckles. "I should have done that. Years ago," he muttered. Elena studied him, really studied him. The perfect golden boy facade had cracked. His usually slicked-back hair was disheveled, his tailored shirt wrinkled. For the first time, he looked like her brother instead of their parents' prized puppet. "Why now?" she asked quietly. Daniel Z. Throat worked. "When I saw Mom on TV lying about you, something snapped." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I remembered what you said that day in the stairwell, about 30 years of moments." A silence stretched between them. Outside, a siren wailed past the building. Daniel reached into his pocket and slid a flash drive across the counter. "Everything I could find. Bank records, emails between Dad and Dr. Vickers, even Mom's notes about handling you after Grandpa died." His mouth twisted. "They never loved either of us, Elena. We were just assets to manage." Elena picked up the flash drive, turning it over in her fingers. The weight of what it contained, what it meant, was staggering. "What about Mia?" she asked suddenly. Daniel's expression darkened. "Turns out she was in on it. Mom promised her a cut of your condo if she helped pressure you. Elena wasn't surprised, just tired. So, the engagement, over. Daniel rubbed his swollen eye. Funny how fast people show their true colors. She almost laughed at that. Almost. Daniel stood abruptly, wincing as he put weight on his right hand. I should go. The DA wants to interview me again at 3. He hesitated. They're offering me immunity to testify against them. Elena raised an eyebrow. Are you going to? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, yeah, I am. She walked him to the door. As he stepped into the hallway, he turned back. For what it's worth, Grandpa was right. You were always the strong one. Elena didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. When the door closed, she slid down to the floor, drawing her knees to her chest. The flash drive dug into her palm. She should call Martin. She should review the evidence. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she sat there, in the quiet of her newly secured home, and let herself cry. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of legal proceedings and media frenzy. Robert and Margaret Carter were arrested on charges of fraud, theft, and assault. The competency petition was dismissed. The house, her house, was officially placed on the market, with all proceeds going to Elena. She spent the 4th morning, after Daniel's visit, sitting across from a gray-haired woman in a sunlit office. Dr. Amina Hassan, trauma specialist, had been recommended by 3 different people at the DA's office. You've been through something extraordinarily painful, Dr. Hassan said gently. Not just the recent events, but a lifetime of systematic betrayal. How are you really doing? Elena looked down at her hands. The cut on her shoulder itched beneath her blouse. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me feels lighter, like I can breathe for the first time. But the other part, her voice cracked. The other part keeps waiting to wake up back in that folding chair. Dr. Hassan nodded. That makes perfect sense. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Elena swallowed hard. How do I stop feeling like this? You don't. Dr. Hassan leaned forward. But you learn to carry it differently, and that process starts with being very kind to yourself right now. Elena left the appointment with a referral and a strange, fragile feeling in her chest, like the first green shoot pushing through cracked concrete. The condo felt different when she returned, lighter somehow. She moved through the rooms, touching familiar objects, the bookshelf she'd built herself, the framed photo of her and Grandpa at the beach, the coffee mug he'd given her that read, "World's Best Granddaughter." For the first time in years, none of it felt like just things. It felt like her life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Martin. House sold. Buyers want to close next week. You okay with that? Elena stared at the message. The house where she'd grown up. The house where she'd been erased. The house that was never really theirs to begin with. She typed back, "Do it." Then she opened her contacts and hovered over Daniel's name. After a deep breath, she tapped it. He answered on the second ring. Hey. Hey, she said. Then, before she could overthink it, I'm listing the house. Thought you should know. A pause. Okay. There's something else. She took a deep breath. I'm donating part of the proceeds to a kids' charity, one that helps with family trauma. Another, longer pause. Then quietly. That's good. That's really good. Elena closed her eyes. Yeah. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Daniel cleared his throat. Listen, I was thinking, when this is all over, maybe we could... I don't know. Get coffee or something. Elena's chest tightened. Coffee. A simple thing. A normal thing. Something siblings might do. Maybe, she said softly. We'll see. She hung up and walked to the window. The city stretched out before her, alive with possibilities. The past was done. The future was unwritten. And for the first time in his life, it was hers. The courtroom smelled like lemon polish and stale coffee. Elena sat perfectly still relatives who'd suddenly remembered they were family once the news vans showed up. But she didn't turn around. She kept her eyes fixed straight ahead on the empty witness stand, on the space where her parents would soon sit.
Welcome to season 3
All
of
rise.
Indian Train Simulator.
The judge took his
Here,
seat,
you will
a stern-faced
transport
man with
passengers
silver
and deliver
hair
freight
and
by
wire-rimmed
driving
glasses.
the best trains along
He
the
adjusted
most
his
scenic
robes and
challenging
nodded.
routes
To
in
the
all of Gujarat.
prosecutor. The people called
Today,
Margaret and
you will
Robert
help
Carter to the
transport a
stand.
shipment of JCB
A murmur
bulldozers
rippled
to a
through the
quarry
crowd as the
nearby.
side door opened.
Are you ready?
Elena's breath
Let's
caught.
get started.
Her parents looked smaller than she remembered. Her father's once imposing frame seemed shrunken beneath his ill-fitting suit, his face pale and unshaven. Her mother's perfect posture was gone. She walked with her head slightly bowed, her hands cupped in front of her. Neither of them looked at Elena as they were led to the stand. The prosecutor stood. Mrs. Carter, is it true that you and your husband conspired to have your daughter declared mentally incompetent in order to gain control of her assets? Her mother's lips thinned. That's not... The prosecutor tapped a button on his laptop. The courtroom speakers crackled to life with her mother's voice from the basement recording. If we can get Elena declared unfit, we'll have access to all her accounts. Maybe then she'll learn respect. Margaret Carter flinched like she'd been struck. The prosecutor let the recording play to its damning conclusion before continuing. And is it also true that you knowingly falsified documents to contest the will of your late father, Gregory Carter, in order to illegally retain possession of a home that rightfully belonged to your daughter? Elena's mother opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in her life, she had no polished lie ready. Her father broke first. We didn't falsify anything, he snapped. That house was ours. Gregory was senile when he changed the deed. The prosecutor didn't blink. Medical records indicate Dr. Gregory Carter was of sound mind up until his passing. Meanwhile, bank records show you withdrew $187,000 from your daughter's college fund just 2 weeks after his death. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, the people rest. The judge adjusted his glasses. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, you've been found guilty on all counts of fraud, theft, and assault. Sentencing will be... Elena's mother suddenly twisted in her seat. Elena! Her voice was raw, desperate. A sound Elena had never heard before. Elena, please. Every eye in the courtroom turned to her. The reporters leaned forward, pens poised. The cameras zoomed in. This was the moment they all wanted. The dramatic reconciliation, the tearful forgiveness, the Hollywood ending. Elena stood. She smoothed her skirt, lifted her chin,
Excellent
and
work.
walked out of the courtroom
Hit
without
continue
looking
and
back.
I will show you your next job.
The house sold on a Tuesday. Elena stood on the sidewalk outside, watching as the new owners, a young couple with a baby on the way, carried
Welcome
boxes
to the
through
mini-map
the
in this all
front
new
door.
season 3 of
The woman
ITS,
paused to
the
wave at
Statue
her,
of Unity.
smiling. Elena
We are
waved
in the
back.
glorious
It
state
didn't
of
hurt like she
Gujarat.
thought it would. Her phone buzzed.
On the map,
A text
you
from
get
Daniel.
to take up challenging new
You okay?
transport jobs
She
from
typed
various
back.
industries and cities.
Yeah, you? Getting there.
Based on your performance,
A pause.
you will be
Then,
generously rewarded.
coffee tomorrow?
Use the rewards to unlock
Elena
hundreds of stunning
hesitated,
new trains
then
and start
replied,
new industries.
Sure. She slipped her
Are
phone
you
into her
ready?
pocket
Let's
and
get
took one
started.
last look at the house. The oak tree in the front yard was just starting to bud, its branches stretching toward the spring sun. She remembered climbing that tree as a kid, scraping her knees, her grandfather cheering her on from below. That's my girl. Nothing can stop you. Elena turned away. The charity check was for $250,000, half the proceeds from the house sale. The director, a warm-eyed woman named Claire, nearly cried when Elena handed it over. This will change so many lives, Claire said, squeezing Elena's hands. Can we name a wing after you, or... Elena shook her head. No, just help them. She left before Claire could thank her again, stepping out into the bright afternoon. The city hummed around her, alive with noise and motion. For the first time in months, Elena felt like she could breathe. Her phone buzzed again. Martin this time. Final paperwork's done. You're officially free. Elena tilted her face up to the sun and smiled. Daniel was already seated at the cafe when she arrived, 2 coffees on the table between them. He stood when he saw her, hesitating for a second before pulling her into an awkward hug. You cut your hair, he said as they sat down. Elena touched the ends of her now sat on her welcome mat. She waited a full minute before getting up to retrieve it. The box was small, unmarked. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a framed photograph. Her and Grandpa at the eye. Beach, his arm around her shoulders, both of them grinning at the camera. She'd thought this copy was lost forever. Taped to the back was a note in Daniel's handwriting. Found this in Dad's desk. Thought you should have it. Elena traced the glass with her fingertips, her throat tight. Then she carried it to the bookshelf and placed it right in the center where she'd see it every day. She picked up her wine and walked to the window. The city glittered below, endless and alive. Somewhere out there, her parents sat in a jail cell. Somewhere out there, her brother was starting over, and right here, in this moment, Elena Carter was exactly where she was meant to be.